Nibali, Dumoulin, Roglic, Yates, Jungels, Landa, Lopez. I mean, the Giro is often seen as the poorer cousin to the beast that is the Tour de France each year, but I think that this year it could be the Grand Tour of the year.
Absolutely. So we are going to talk through the must-watch stages, all the key riders, and give our fateful GCN predictions, all the while sipping afternoon cappuccinos at the Amerones restaurant in Bath.
True Italian style. First up then, let's take a look at this year's route. As is the norm for Grand Tours these days, it takes place over the course of 21 stages over 3 weeks. This year, it totals 3,518 kilometres. Within that, there are 3 individual time trials that total 58.5 kilometres. We've then got 8 flat stages, 4 intermediate or hilly stages, and then 6 in the high mountains.
Yeah, with a total of 7 summit or hilltop finishes. Now, it starts a little bit later than usual on Saturday the 11th of May with a short but really tough individual prologue time trial.
That's around Bologna, isn't it? They're all stinging the tail on that one. The last climb of that time trial is known as the Colla del Gardia. That, some of you will know, is the climb that's used in the Giro dell'Emilia, an autumn one-day classic each and every year. It's tough on a road bike, even tougher perhaps on a time trial bike, because it's 2.1 k's at an average gradient of 9.8%.
Yeah, well, you say time trial bike, perhaps they will start on a TT bike and finish on a road bike, having done a cheeky little bike change at the bottom. One of my least favourite things in pro cycling.
Yeah.
But anyway, something for another day. Right, from that stage, the race then heads south onto the Mediterranean coast for 2 stages that look like they should be for the sprinters. The first hilltop finish is on stage 4 to Frascati. It doesn't look like it's going to be that tough, so maybe no major time gaps, but perhaps a different winner that day. Then the race heads over to the Adriatic coast before on stage 7 you go up to L'Aquila.
L'Aquila was a Finnish venue, wasn't it, that was made famous back in 2010, where we had that epic 262-kilometre stage which turned the race on its head. The conditions were atrocious. All of the big favourites up there on the GC had a bit of a spat behind and let a massive break up the road. And what ended up happening was Richie Porte went into the pink jersey as a reasonably unknown rider. It certainly etched into my brain because I was in that stage suffering like a good one. The winner took 6.5 hours to complete it, and I was about 40 minutes down.
Really? Why were you so slow?
Well, I missed the break. I went as fast as I could. Let me tell you, Si, that race was so hard that even Adam Hansen couldn't finish the stage.
Really? To be fair, it's etched in my brain, and I was on the sofa watching
I wish I was.
Right then, the first half of the race, it's fair to say, is relatively unspectacular in terms of terrain, although that is by Giro standards, so for most of us, still absolutely blooming amazing. Now, the second individual time trial is going to be a tough one. That's 34.8 kilometres long. You'd think that's where Tom Dumoulin is going to try and exert his advantage over the pure climbers, although the terrain is such that they will probably be relatively happy as well.
Yeah, more happy than if it was completely flat, I think you'd say. After that follows the first rest day of the race, and after that follows a couple of stages probably earmarked for the sprinters. They're reasonably flat, including, in fact, one visit to the supercar capital of the world, Modena. That, the birthplace to Enzo Ferrari, and it's not too far away from the headquarters of Maserati, Lamborghini and Pagani, and previously, many years ago, Bugatti too.
After that, things get nasty. The race enters a frankly eye-watering series of mountain stages over some of the most iconic climbs in Giro history, and the riders won't get any respite right until stage 18.
Stage 13 looks like a really tough one, doesn't it? That stage goes from Pinerolo to Ceresole Reale. It's a summit finish at Lago Serra, over 2,200 metres above sea level. Not a particularly famous climb, but it is a big one, over 20 kilometres in length, with gradients of up to 15% somewhere near the start. It does flatten off about halfway through, and there's even a small descent, but then towards the end, it continues to get steeper and steeper towards the summit, with gradients of up to 10.5%.
Wow, things ramp up even more on the following stage, stage 14. In fact, the organisers have given this one 5 stars in terms of severity, despite the fact that it's relatively punchy, just 131 k's. It is brutal. It goes from Saint-Vincent to Courmayeur. There are 4,000 metres of climbing over 5 climbs there. The penultimate climb, the Colla San Carlo, is 10.5 kilometres long. at 9.8% average, with pitches of up to 14 and 15% in there. So that is a bit of a beast, isn't it?
The following day is stage 15. That rounds out the second week of racing. And it'll be familiar to a lot of you, in fact, because it traces much of the route from Il Lombardia, which is the last World Tour one-day race of the season each autumn. As such, it takes in the iconic climbs of the Madonna del Ghisale and super steep climb, in fact, of the Colma di Sormano. We've then got a couple more climbs to go before the finish next to Lake Como, which would be nice.
It sounds tough, but it is nothing compared to what the riders face in the final week. Particularly the dates that you need to set in your diaries. Stage 16, Tuesday the 28th of May. It is an epic 226 kilometres with 5,000 metres of climbing on the way to Ponte di Legno, including the absolute giant of the Gavia and the Mortirolo.
All of you know the Gavia climb, don't you? It's the one that was made famous by Andy Hampson in 1988. That was the day he went into the pink jersey, riding through some of the most epic weather conditions that a bike race has ever seen.
Yeah, it's ironic, isn't it, actually, when you think about the modern extreme weather protocol, it kind of robs the riders of the ability to enter legendary status, because they wouldn't race in those conditions, would they, anymore?
No, exactly. I'm not sure that L'Aquila stage that I did would have gone ahead these days. If I'm perfectly
No,
honest.
and to be fair, I mean, people all over the world are still talking about your ride to L'Aquila that day.
I'm still whinging about it, if I'm perfectly honest. Anyway, the Gavia this year has the Cima Coppi prize. So the first rider over the top of that will receive that prize, as it's the highest point of this year's route at 2,618 metres above sea level.
Wow. And then the Mortirolo. I mean, what can you say about that? One of the steepest climbs in pro racing, isn't it? This time it goes up the conventional side, which is the best side. There are maximum gradients of 16% in there, but it's the prolonged section of over 6 kilometres where it averages over 12% that's going to be getting people's legs crumbling.
Whilst the Gavia was made famous by Andy Hampson riding through his epic conditions, the Mortirolo was made famous a little bit later than that by Cy Richardson, who managed to get up it in the 39.23.
Oh yeah, only just.
I might have bitten off more than I can chew here.
That was the old tendonitis now.
It's not good, actually. Nothing to do with the Mortirolo, but I will have to re-ride it in a couple of weeks. We're making a video there about just how hard the hardest stage of a Grand Tour is this year. Honestly, I'm terrified because
In one day, or are you
226.
taking your bivvy?
I was hoping to do it in one day. In fact, I'm not taking a bivvy, so I have to do it in one day. One very big day. Right, anyway, stage 17 is still another summit finish. This time it goes up to Antolz.
Stage 18 is that brief bit of respite that we talked to you about earlier. In fact, I quite like the look of this stage because although it's 220 k's long, if the profile is to be believed, it's almost entirely downhill.
Nice, yeah. Well, just as well, actually, because stage 19 is almost entirely uphill, ending up on a summit finish at San Martino di Castrozza. And then the penultimate stage is actually the final mountain stage. And this one goes up to the Croce d'Aune,
which is a climb and a mountain which is well etched into the history books of cycling, isn't it? For a very good reason. In fact, the riders, as they go up it, will pass a monument to commemorate the year 1927 and a certain guy called Tullio Campagnolo who could not change his wheel on that particular year's Giro d'Italia. Soon after that race, he invented the world's first ever quick release. And in fact, a few years later, he invented the rear derailleur in 1933, and he called it, wait for it, the Croce d'Aune.
Did he? That's a coincidence, isn't it? Anyway, we digress. Back to the race and the final stage. If a rider like Dumoulin or Roglic is in the Maglia Rosa, they are going to be thanking their lucky stars that they are finishing with a time trial. It should be relatively straightforward for them. However, if it's one of our pure climbers, they've got a battle on their hands. The one saving grace is that the organisers have kept it quite short, just 17 Ks they'd have to hold on.
Well, fingers crossed it does come down to that very final stage. It has a couple of times in the last decade, hasn't it? 2012, rider Hesjedal overhauled Joaquim Rodriguez on the final day's time trial, and then exactly the same thing happened between Tom Dumoulin and Nairo Quintana in 2017.
Yeah, that's right. And, in fact, bit of Giro history for you. In 1984, in the very city of Verona, Moser overhauled Laurent Fignon to take the Giro that year. Poor Laurent Fignon lost another Grand Tour in a time trial.
I didn't even know that.
No, I didn't either. Before the infamous Tour de France one, where he got rolled by Greg LeMond.
Wow. Hashtag facts. Right, well, that's the route for the 2019 Giro d'Italia. Before we get on to the riders to watch out for this year, we're going to have a quick break for a short commercial break. Our own commercial break, in fact, because we've got some merchandise that we would like to sell you. First up, we've got these new 3D tees that Si's been sporting through the show. We've got the country tees, which are still proving very popular with you all. And of course, since the launch of GCN Italia, we also have their own t-shirt, which I love. That's a cracking logo, isn't it?
Availability may be limited. Price is correct at time of publication. Real garments will look better in real life compared to on our presenters. The contenders then. First up, we got Vincenzo Nibali. He is the only rider on the start line to have won this race twice before, and he's looking like he's pretty fired up for this one, doesn't he? If his performance at the Tour of the Alps is anything to go by. He animated the 5-stage race through the Austrian and the Italian Alps, and that was straight off the back of an altitude training camp in Tenerife. He went straight back into the groove, didn't he?
He did look good there.
Yeah.
And in fact, his manager, Brent Copeland, said he's never looked so good on the lead up to a Grand Tour in the last few years. Certainly seems to have got over that injury which wrecked the 2018 season in terms of the Grand Tours for him. Also, there's the fact that there are some very high-profile contract talks going on with Nibali at the moment, so he might be able to eke his price up a bit if he wins a Grand Tour at the ripe old age of 34.
Yeah. Right, next up, we've got Tom Dumoulin. Now, having finished as runner-up to Geraint Thomas in the Tour de France last year, it could well come as a surprise to people to see him on the start line here, given that he's therefore not focusing all his energies on bumping himself up one spot in July. But he said that having reviewed the routes of both races, he is going to be focusing on the Giro while still trying to do the double because, frankly, it just suits him more.
Yeah, he is the only other former winner on the start line this year, in fact, along with Nibali, isn't he? I think it's fair to say we've not seen the best of Tom Dumoulin so far in 2019, but I wouldn't be too worried. He knows what he's doing when it comes to correct training, should I say. And he's got a history of getting his form at exactly the right point at exactly the right time.
That's right. Then next up, Primož Roglič.
Yes, he has been flying, hasn't he, this last year? He is a former ski jumper, of course. But Primož Roglič, he's kind of been the revelation of the world of Grand Tours since he burst onto the scene only 3 years ago in 2016.
That's right. He's a man that can kind of do it all, can't he? He can climb with the best, he can time trial with the best, and he is a demon descender. No surprise given his Alpine background. Rumour has it that were there to be a massive jump on the descent of the Gavia, he would be the only GC contender to be able to actually clear it and land it.
Yeah, he'll be leading Jumbo-Visma, as we mentioned, but leading Team Ineos, as they are now known, is the Colombian climbing sensation. Now, he's had quite the meteoric rise to the position of team leader at that squad. He's only 22 years of age, let's not forget. He was a product of that Androni Giocattoli school of talent spotting, and in fact, on that subject, he might well be joined by Ivan Ramiro Sosa at the Giro this year.
Yeah, although this is his first opportunity to be team leader at a Grand Tour, you wouldn't put it past him winning, would you? I mean, the work that he did for Geraint Thomas as one of his super domestiques at the Tour de France last year, where he was with him right through to the finale, and his season this year would back it up, wouldn't it? So he won Paris-Nice, he was third in Volta Catalunya, and he's also going to be supported by two guys that turned pro in the same year as him, the class of 2017, Teo Gegenhardt and Pavel Sivakov, both of whom are absolutely pinging as well.
They have. They took their first pro wins very recently, didn't they? Next up, we've got Simon Yates. Who could forget what happened to him last year? He looked brilliant for what? About 18 stages, was leading the race. And then he burnt all his matches and absolutely collapsed.
The noise of the explosion is still reverberating around the Italian Alps, isn't it?
Yeah, it was brutal to watch, wasn't it? He lost out to Chris Froome. Actually, he lost out in the top 10 overall, if memory serves me correctly. He did bounce back last year to take the overall win at the Vuelta a España, which was nice to see. And he's now back here to make amends at the Giro.
That's right. Now, he's had an interesting 2019, hasn't he? He supported his twin brother Adam to take second place at Volta Catalunya. Simon himself has taken a couple of stage wins at the Ruta del Sol. He also took his first ever time trial victory in a pro race. Brilliant performance at Paris-Nice as well. And because of that, because of the work he's been doing against the clock, he's really upped his game, hasn't he, for Mitchelton Scott?
And I think he'll have learnt a lot from last year too, won't he?
Yeah.
We also got another Colombian sensation, Superman Miguel Angel Lopez. He will lead Team Astana, who've had a quite incredible start to 2019. Miguel Lopez is 4 years senior to so he is coming into his prime now, and he's been on good form this year. He took his home race at the Tour Colombia right at the start of the season, had a small blip at Paris, but I think that was probably mainly down to the weather conditions and the crosswinds. But then bounced back at the Volta Catalunya, which he won overall, and that was a race full of big hitters.
Yeah, could this come down to a battle of the Colombians? It's quite likely almost, isn't it?
Well, I don't think we're far away from a Grand Tour which has an all-Colombian podium, if I'm perfectly honest, the next couple of years. Beyond that, well, we have to mention Bob Jungels because he has worn the pink jersey on 2 separate occasions at the Giro d'Italia. Be interested to see whether his focus still is on the GC now after his performance at the Cobbled Classics this year. What we do know is that he won't have a team fully surrounding him like and also like Lopez, because they're also bringing it to Koenig Quickstep the sprinter Elia Viviani.
Yeah. Then the world champion Alejandro Valverde, as we film this, his participation is currently in doubt following the crash he had in the Ardennes. But Movistar, his team, will have Mikel Landa, who is looking like he might be okay for this one, and also last year's sensation, Richard Carapaz.
We also got Team Katusha here. They'll be led by Ilnur Zakarin. Never know what to expect from him. He could be on the podium. He could finish in 50th position for all we know. It really is a stacked field. You've not even mentioned Mike Woods of EF Education.
No, or Rafa Majka of Bora Hansgrohe.
Yeah, I can't wait for the whole race to start. We haven't mentioned any of the sprinters yet. Admittedly, the length of top-class sprinters' names is not quite as long as the GC prospect. Normal for the course, really, these days at the Giro d'Italia, which is so brutal. But we will have Elia Viviani, Caleb Ewan, Fernando Gaviria and Arnaud Demar amongst those fighting it out on the flat stages.
That's right. The interesting thing is going to be who Bora Hansgrohe take, isn't it? So currently Pascal Ackermann is there, but will they see sense and send Irish sprint sensation Sam Bennett? We're kind of hoping so.
Well, he was the sensation of last year's Giro along with Elia Viviani in the sprints, wasn't he? And he's really proven himself this year. We'll wait and see.
Yeah.
Right, we've got the route, we've done the riders. It's time then for the predictions. Primoz Roglic.
Vincenzo Nibali.
My prediction for the 2019 Giro d'Italia, I'm going to say...
Oh, my Giro prediction. I think this year's Giro d'Italia winner is going to be Simon Yates.
I think the winner of this Giro d'Italia will be Vincenzo Nibali.
Alan, who's gonna win the Giro?
Vincenzo Nibali. In my opinion, Vincenzo Nibali. And for you?
For me...
Right, my prediction for the Giro d'Italia is Adam Yates because he's going to switch with Simon Yates on every stage.
For sure.
They agree.
It's possible.
Exactly. They're Italian, they agree.
I think the winner of the Giro d'Italia this year would be Superman Lopez.
My prediction for the winner of the Giro d'Italia is Simon Yates. And the reason for that is because I just watched this film called The Prestige, where there's 2 twins and they keep swapping places, and I think they can do that.
The great news is that once we get up to about 180 presenters, we're guaranteed a prediction win, aren't we?
That's right, although we'll have to run a sweepstake by that point, because otherwise everyone will be predicting the same people, so we still won't get it right.
No, good point. Right, well, that is it for our Giro d'Italia preview for 2019. But don't worry, because we've got so much content Giro-related coming up for you over the next 3.5 weeks.
That's right. So you're heading out there, aren't you?
I am,
very shortly indeed, along with Ollie, to create a load of super cool videos. I'm going out there then a little bit later, as I said, among other things, to try and ride the Queen stage, which... well, watch this space.
Good luck.
And then over on Facebook, we'll have our daily highlights wrap-up show as well, which I'm super excited about and looking forward to doing again. And then our mates over at Eurosport, of course, will be televising it as well.
Yeah, live coverage every single day from them. All right, don't forget to let us know who you think is going to win the Giro d'Italia this year by leaving that name in the comments section just down below. In the meantime, if you would like to watch Si grinding his way up that Mortirolo climb a few years ago when he was much younger, you can find that video just down here.
That's a lovely term, isn't it? Grinding away, yeah.